Hi, Stitchy friends. I'm Deborah, stitching granny of 17. Yes, I have 17 grandchildren. I've been married for 40 years, and we have 3 daughters and a son. The eldest grandchild is 22, and the youngest is just now 10 months old. We stay pretty busy, and of course, I try to teach all my grandchildren some form of stitching, even the boys. Some of them got into doing some piecing and a little bit of quilting. Not many have really wanted to go into stitching. They've showed a little bit of, that maybe, but then they think about it, no, it's not for me. But that's okay. As long as I share what I know that God has blessed me with, then I know that it's going to pass on, whether with them or they're going to pass it to their children. That's all that matters. And back in 1980, when I started stitching, I stitched 1, maybe 2 pieces, and I went to a stitch shop and I took my work with me because my neighbor was stitching some samples for them. And so I showed them my work and I asked them, is there a possibility that I could stitch a sample or 2? Didn't have a lot of money to put into stitching, so just spending time to stitch, that was great for me because I'm a stitcher or a quilter. The finishing of stitching, not so much, but I try. I enjoy more stitching than I do finishing. So I did a piece back in 1983, and I don't know the name of it. It was a woman and man gathering eggs. That's all I remember. I don't even remember the name of it. It was a booklet. It was good quality, like construction paper type thing. It was stiff, and there wasn't any pages that I can remember. It was just written inside the leaflet. So here is the woman. So if anybody has any idea of how to find that pattern, I surely would appreciate if you write it in the comments, because I really like to stitch the man. It has a special meaning to me. I gave this to my grandmother. I did frame it. I didn't know how to frame then. I just taped it to the insert of the cheap frame that I purchased, and then inserted it behind glass and gave it to my grandmother, and she dearly loved it for many years. And when she passed away, it was given back to me. So I'd like to finish it and also do the man and then hang it somewhere in the house just to remember my grandmother. My grandmother's the one that brought the love of sewing and embroidery and crochet into my life. She just awakened the gift that God had given me, and she showed me how to use it to the fullest, and I still appreciate it to this very day. So now on to some stitchy things that I finished. First, I'd like to share Bitty Barns. It's the spring and summer. And here's the spring. And here's the summer. And they're both stitched on white Aida 14 count. I used the called for threads. And the trims that I have on here, they're really vintage. I've had them for many, many, many years, and they were given to me. So I'm trying to use them up. Next, I have to show a picture because I don't have the pattern with me. I did this one, and it's by Twin Peak Primitives, and it's Daisy, and this is how I finished her. And she stitched on 14 count Aida, and I hand dyed it. And then next I did some Lori Holt her pillows, or not pillows, but the little stitch cards, that's what they're called. And I didn't bring those to show you, but I brought the finished objects. This is stitched on 11 count, and it was hand tea dyed. Then here's the little pig. And it's got the vintage trim. The bee had the chenille, and I got it at Michael's. And then here's the little sheep, and it's got little fuzzy chenille type yarn that I found at Michael's. And then here's the cow. I can't believe I've got 2 cows now, and I'm known as the chicken lady because I love chickens. You see my chicken right there. I have dozens and dozens and dozens of chickens all through my house, mostly from in my kitchen and my dining area. Next, I'd like to share with you Plum Street samplers. And I finished this one. And it's on this easel that I found at Hobby Lobby. And the pom-poms are on a little spool at Hobby Lobby. I don't remember the name of the Ada that I used, but it is 14 count. Next, I'd like to show you some finished objects. First, I'll show you July Country Cottage Needleworks. And I changed up all the colors. I felt like July needed more of the red, white, and blue. I did use some classic color works in the house, but the rest of it's done with Ada. And then with August sampler, and here it is. I'm trying to see if you all can see this. Next, I did a blackbird design. I did this one back in June, the first weekend in June, with the blackbird sew along. And I did the one on the cover. But this one, I also changed up the threads. I felt like it needed to have more red, white, and blue. I did use some classic color works. I did use some Weeks and some DMC. I omitted the B that was supposed to be in here. I was debating on whether I should put our initial or last name initial or just leave it. I'm still undecided. That's why it's not finished yet. And next, I finished Frosty, but I finished Frosty, I think, back in January of this year, and I still haven't fully finished Frosty, which I'm going to get around to it. I just got to finish the other 2 also, and then I'll have a better idea how I'm going to finish it, because I'd like to finish them all the same. And here's Frosty. And it's stitched on 14 count Ada, and it's a light gray color Ada. Next, I joined the sew along that was going on with Lori Holt, the sew by row. And I finished this. And here's mine. And I decided to make my fabric that's down here at the bottom, I gave it a plaid, polka dot, checkered kind of look. I wanted it to look more like fabric. That was fun, but I don't know what I'm gonna do with it because I don't have a sewing room right now because my son and his 3 children, they're here most of the time, and they have the rooms that I use for my sewing rooms. So until I get another sewing room, it's gonna stay unfinished unless I give it away. And then I had some stitchy kindness. My friend, Stitchin' Dottie, she gave me all these zippers to make some project bags, of which I forgot to show you. I did this cross stitch, Little House Needleworks, and it was supposed to be a needle book. And I didn't need another needle book. So I said, what could I do with it? So I made a project bag. I put the clear vinyl on this side and I forgot to put it on the needle side. But it doesn't really go anywhere, it just stays here, so I doubt it's gonna get messed up. And then before I go on with some more stitchy kindness, I wanted to show you an embroidery bag that I did. And this pattern comes from Jacqueline Steves. She has the Art of Home Club. And I did this. I was doing a lot of hand embroidery, but it went way too fast. And I kept building up so much stash, and I had to turn it into things, which also takes time. So I was so glad when I damaged my quadricep last September. It forced me to have to sit down, and I didn't have time to, or I couldn't get up and go hunt fabric to draw something else on another piece of fabric and embroidery that would only take me a couple hours to totally finish. They wanted me off my legs, so cross-stitching kept me sitting a lot longer. So we pulled my scroll frame, my floor frame out from under the bed, which it's been there for 6 years when my son moved in, and he had a 2 and a 3-year-old, and I couldn't have my floor frame out then. I was afraid they might get hurt. So we put it away, and I totally forgot about it. All right, back on to Stitchy Kindness. Dottie also gave me the whole series of Farmhouse Christmas. Grandma's Quilt, Pinewood Farm, Horsing Around, Little Red Barn, Cock-a-doodle-doo for the chicken lady, Baba Black Sheep, Grandpa's pickup, and Grandpa does have a pickup. Unfortunately, it's not red. It's a purplish blue. And then Dairy Darling. And there's another cow. I guess cows are gonna have to join in with my chickens. And then Farm Folk. So I can't wait to get started on these. I've got to get to the stitch shop and get the call for threads that I need. Then I had another friend, her name is Rhonda, and this week she just sent me a very sweet pattern. And I've been wanting to do it, but I've spent so much getting quilt kits that I figured I better hold off getting any more cross stitch. I figured a couple of cross stitch on top of the quilt kits is more than enough for anyone. So she sent me flea market flowers. So we're gonna start this one and finish it hopefully together. And then, let's see, I lost track. I think that's it. Okay, for my first floss tube, I guess I didn't do too awfully bad. But no, I did have some more. I forgot. I forgot about works in progress. Okay, I'm doing the 12 days of Christmas. This is my take along stitch, so no, there's not a lot of progress. I did get a little bit done at Stitching Scotty's house last week. I did show this, but I have done a little bit more on these. But if I'm gonna get these done before Christmas, I'm gonna have to really get busy. And then the other pattern, let's see, the pattern that I got when I got my quilt kits, I got snowballs for sale. And I got this from Happy Little Stitch Shop. They have a floss tube every Thursday at 2:30 our time, but it's Central Time for them. It's at 1:30. So Eastern Time, it's 2:30. And they sent me all the call for floss for it. And I had a piece of Aida that I dyed that I'll be using. I thought it might look nice on there. And then Dottie, Stitching Scotty, she had started Little House Needleworks Kringles. And I knew when I saw it first last year, I said, I've got to do that. And so when she started it, it was an excuse for me to get it and start it. And here's my progress. Now this is 16 count Aida, and it's coffee dyed only. And I'm using the all DMC threads on it. In Happy Little Stitch Shop, they have a Lori Holt club. They only open it up in June, and so you have to wait till next June to be able to join it. But we have a private YouTube, and we get special discounts with Happy Little Stitch Shop, and we also have swaps that we do, and we have stitch alongs and quilt alongs together. So it's really fun, and you get to communicate with other ladies live. We don't really get to see each other yet, but that's okay. We're having lots of fun with it. So if you get a chance, go check out Happy Little Stitch Shop. And then I got pumpkins for sale. I started this. And I started this last weekend, and here's my progress. Well, it's been fun today chatting with y'all, but before I go, I'd like to read a verse because I'm going to end all my floss tubes with at least reading a verse from the Bible. So if you don't want to hear it, now's the time. And I'm reading from Psalms 139, 9 and 10. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me. That tells me no matter where I am, God is there. And he'll never leave me, and he'll never forsake me. Thank y'all so much for sharing time with me by watching this floss tube. And be on the lookout for my quilty tube next week. And I wanted to give a couple of shout outs before I go. Shout outs with Dottie with Stitching Scotty, and Christy of Crossed Hatch Quilts, Niecy Lynn, Celeste Creates, and Nicole's Needleworks. I really enjoy watching some quilts along with stitching. It seems to satisfy my soul just to see the stitching as well as the quilting. It's just not complete, one thing over the other. So be sure to check them out, and I'll be seeing y'all again soon. All right, bye.